And the moment that I felt that I was no longer just like some hired gun filling in for them, but that I was actually part of a trio and a third of a trio and like brothers and equals with these people and contributing something more than just playing someone else's songs, it was like just the greatest sense of accomplishment I've ever had in my life. And playing that first show with them is it stands out as by far. I don't care. I've played bigger shows. I've played smaller shows since we've done crazy things. It doesn't matter. That first show, sealing the deal and being there with those other two guys, the three of us on stage, was by far like one of the greatest achievements I've ever had. And it was just kind of a sense of, fuck yeah, we did it.
Hey, what's up, Vox&Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians, talk all about their lives and music while sharing a craft beer. Hope you had a killer weekend. I most certainly did. This Vox&Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal, Montreal's premier metal promoter, and I'm very stoked to have teamed up with them to bring you Brutal Montreal 2023. Brutal Montreal 2023 is coming up on April 15th at MTL. This year's event will feature performances by Clutch, Amigo the Devil, and Nate Bergman. Tickets for Brutal Montreal 2023 are selling incredibly fast. If you are planning on coming to the show, you better pick one up soon because you will miss out on this killer metal and beer festival in my hometown of Montreal. If you'd like to pick up your tickets, head on over to voxandhops.com/brutalmtl. That's voxandhops.com/brutalmtl, and you will be taken to the official page where you can pick up your tickets. I am beyond stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast. Now, on today's Artist Spotlight segment, I'm very stoked to be shining some light on Red Rot. Red Rot is a progressive death metal band. You gotta imagine the bastard child of Morbid Angel, Voivod, and somehow even Catatonia and Paradise Lost. Get ready, everyone. Here is Red Rot's Near Disaster. That was sweet. I really enjoyed this track from Red Rot, Near Disaster. It's a part of their debut album, which is called Mal de Vivre, that came out on August 26, 2022 via Zvart Records. If you enjoyed this track from Red Rot, well, you should absolutely go and follow them, check them out. I've put a link to their website, redrotmetal.com, in the description of this podcast. Massive cheers to Red Rot for being on today's Vox&Hops Artist Spotlight. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I'd just like to ask you to follow the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I would love for you to tell a friend about the podcast. If there's someone in your life that is just a killer guitarist, well, you should let them know that the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast exists. You can tell them that there are over 390 episodes where I sit down with some of the world's best metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing a craft beer. If you would encourage one of your guitar virtuoso friends to become a brand new Vox&Hops head, that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, today's episode was recorded during February's Thirsty Thursday live interview. I am very stoked to be back with Daniel Dekay of Exciter. Get ready, everyone. This is Vox&Hops episode number 397.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm very, very stoked to be back with Daniel Dekay of Exciter Diamonds. He's a very busy man. He's a YouTuber. He's on Twitch. We're on Twitch right now. He's streaming this whole interview on Twitch right now. He does Knotfest. I don't know when he sleeps. He recently relocated to LA. We are recording this at a Thirsty Thursday virtual hang, and the hang is being streamed on Twitch to the Dekay Army. This is cool. I think it's a first, and I'm excited for all of this. But let's just start with a very simple. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. And for those of you who don't have the visual accompaniment, I just opened my first beer of the day. It's officially 5 o'clock here, so no guilt.
Yes, let's jump straight into it. Vox&Hops, all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, while sharing craft beer. What did you just crack right there?
So this is the Rogue Batsquatch Hazy India Pale Ale. Yeah, loving that it's a super badass art. I do like the beer, but I like a lot of different craft beers. So I made sure that when I went to the store, I also bought the one with the coolest label for the coolest metal and beer podcast. So this one's got a Batsquatch on it, literally, which is fucking awesome. And of course, due to the hilarity of green screen technology, it looks ridiculous right now, but it's a super cool looking can. The Batsquatch Hazy India Pale Ale. Love it. It's a little strong. Might get a little sloppy after a couple.
We shall see as the hang continues. For myself, we're recording this early February. It's the first Thursday of February. And everyone knows Vox&Hops is that I do a sober February. And I'm drinking something that came out last year, something that's pretty cool from Satanic Tea Company, Pitch Black North, out of Calgary, Alberta. This is a Nun So Vile. It's the collab that he made for Cryptopsy. It's awesome. It's black tea with lavender, and of course, if I'm involved in anything, there's a bunch of hops in it. So very, very cool tea. Loving that. Massive shout-outs to Dominic, the Satanic Tea Lord himself, for just being cool and sponsoring Sober February and everything else. I love it. Yeah, let's just, how's 2023 been? You moved to LA. That's new since we were hanging out in Manitoba back in May, I want to say.
Dude, yeah, that was May in Manitoba. Shout out to an amazing night. We had like 2 really good nights there. That was a ripper, man.
I jumped in the crowd, and I don't do that.
I know. I couldn't believe it. It was like you guys and the Striker guys. It was the most violent Exciter show I'd ever played. We're a traditional heavy metal band. We do like fist pumping in the air, not mosh pits often. And I got like you and the Striker guys are just flying by me and above me while we're playing and commanding that pit. It was awesome. That was a really good 2-day Canadian heavy metal hang in Winnipeg, of all places. I never had so much fun in Winnipeg. 23 has been awesome, though, man. As you pointed out, a bit of a relocation, a large relocation for me to start off the year. And just been, trying to stay as busy as humanly possible because fucking sleep is completely overrated and more time to be awake and drink beer, I suppose.
Exactly where I was headed. Sober February. I'm doing Sober February. This episode is going to come out next month, so it's not going to be a Sober February content, but I will ask the question, how do you deal with the balance of overindulging and finding all the energy that you need to do everything that needs to be done, because as you spoke about in our last chat that we did at the pre-fest party when we were at Sukram's Brewing, if you do get a hangover, it takes a full day recovery.
Yeah, I actually recall from that exact moment in that interview where Chris Thrash was next to us, and you're asking how we all get over a hangover, and Chris Thrash said, by going to the gym and eating a shawarma. And I'm like, all right, this guy hasn't broken 30 yet. So
I think you're correct.
Hangovers are quite debilitating, my friend, as we get up there. So I try to, I learn my limits, especially with liquor. I used to pair a shot of whiskey, Irish whiskey, with my beer for every beer I had all night. And I can't do that anymore because if I do that, the next day is a total write-off and there's going to be 65 unread emails. So we try not to indulge too much in the hard liquor, or at least try not to make every beer a 1-to-1 ratio with a shot of liquor. But yeah, there's still some very hungover days where I'm either doing stuff like this, or I'm on a really important call, or writing emails that define the entire future of any of my projects while I'm, puking or eating Advil like it's fucking Pop Rocks. It's just the way it goes sometimes. I'm actually, it's interesting you say like how you balance and manage. I don't actually, is the true honest answer. I'm either all in or I'm all out with everything in life. And that includes with drinking and doing things in moderation. The only time I've ever done like a stint of sobriety, it hasn't been like a sober February. It was a sober 2 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I'm either like all in or all out, and you can pretty much apply that to every element of my life.
That I can tell. But let's go back to those 2 years. What prompted the was it just an intense series of 1-for-1s, Irish whiskey and beers, or was it just that life just got too messy?
It was the 1-for-1s, and 1-for-1 69 420 times a night starts to get really hard on your body and your mind. And I found myself not the happiest and not the most productive, and certainly not the healthiest. So I just cold turkey kicked booze out the door for 2 years, and then immediately went on my first ever tour of Europe. And boy, let me tell you, touring Germany for 3 weeks, not drinking beer was really tough.
Their beers are so good.
And even more tough, actually, from that tour is going into a bar anywhere in the UK or anywhere in Germany and asking for a near beer, a 0% alcohol-free beer, is really not as easy as you might think. I recall one night, I believe we were in Glasgow, and one night in Glasgow, I just decided, everyone was drinking beer. I'm like, man, I've been sober this whole tour. And, for months prior, like, I just want to have a beer and cheers with everyone, like a 0%. So I go to the bartender and I'm like, hey, do you guys have an alcohol-free beer? Like, something if someone was a designated driver for the evening or if they're sober. And she's like, oh, I got you. We got one. The owner loves these. He does in moderation, and this is perfect. So she gives me the alcohol-free beer. I crack it. I get about halfway through, and I'm feeling a little silly in right here. And I flip the label and look it over, and it's a low alcohol beer. It's 2.5%. There is no such thing as like, what the hell is alcohol-free beer in a place where drinking culture is so prominent. So yeah, that was a rough run, man, doing my first rip through Europe, not drinking. But I promptly came home from that tour, walked into my local bar, and I recall being like, all right, PBR and a Jameson, let's go. I'm back, baby. I can't do that again.
Well, it's good to dance with the devil, and dance with knowing that you went too far with the devil and then reeling yourself back so that you can re-emerge and hopefully have learned from those experiences is what we hope. It doesn't always end up being that way, sadly, because I'm not one of those people that wakes up and is like, I'm never doing this again. I don't find myself saying that, but I would like to reanalyze the amounts of certain indulgences of some nights, I would say.
I think it's tough too as you get more into drinking, especially like in our world. We're talking about craft beer. Like, I love craft beer. I don't need to drink PBR every night. It's hard on the gut, and it's just like, man, you really got to be careful with some of these. Speaking of overindulging, got to be careful with some of these ABVs, man. You know, like even with you, I remember like we were sitting in Winnipeg trying a bunch of like, you know, off the rack, just trying, all right, let's try a pint of this, pint of that, pint of that. Let's see what we like. And, you know, you got to be careful. Some of these beers are 6.5, 7.5, 9%. It's just like, you know, it's, man, I need something a little more sessionable, you know, I want to have a bunch. So I need something sessionable, something reasonable.
I agree. Low ABV beers, people, and no more sessions, though I don't like session beers unless they're crispy boys. Last time we spoke, I asked about your soundtrack of your youth. You mentioned that your mom listened to Genesis, but you discovered metal in the basement with your father, Iron Maiden. At what point did the guitar become such a big part of your life?
So I mean, since like my earliest times listening to metal, as a kid, I'd be like standing on the couch and jumping off of it while Iron Maiden played, pretending I was air guitaring or grabbing a broomstick and power sliding down the down the hallway, and just, you know, always into like the performance and rocking out element of music. It wasn't just the sound, it was the visual. When I'd see the videos and I'd see people with guitars, I got really excited about it. So I was always faking playing guitar and faking air drumming until I was old enough to, you know, get my hands on an actual guitar. Had a toy drum kit when I was really, really little, like, you know, one of those Fisher-Price type situations, and some like novelty, like xylophone and keyboards and guitars, like toys essentially. But when I was 13, my grandparents got me my first ever acoustic guitar. I still have it. It's I don't have any other instruments from that early on, and all instruments have long been sold from that era, but I just can't let go of that OG acoustic. Even though it just sits and gathers dust, it doesn't get much use. It's really just a relic of where I came from, and I'll never be able to let go of it. But I mean, I suppose I'm a late starter for some people. Like 13 is, you know, some kids be getting into the Suzuki School of Music and like shredding violin by age 6 and shit. So I mean, perhaps I'm a late bloomer, but it wasn't until 13 I got my first guitar.
Was it something that you were naturally good at, or did you have to put the work in?
Oh, absolutely not. It's still not naturally good. It's just like a constant fake it till you make it situation. Yeah, like it was almost embarrassing. I had this like buddy that was the same age as me, and we got guitars around the same time, and he was like playing circles around me. And then another buddy, and he was playing circles around me. Then I hit high school, and my best friend was like shredding Winter Sun solos. And I'm like, hey man, like I really got that John Frusciante solo down with like 4 notes in it. It's like, sounds awesome, dude. Like, woo! Like it was brutal, dude. It was took me forever to really get my groove and get my chops going. And, still working on it every day. I'm still really just out here playing Ace Frehley licks over and over again. But, whatever. As I say, you got to fake it till you make it. So it does not come easy to me. I'm by no means do I think I was like naturally born with any gift. It was just a case of, I think what was unique about me is that I knew what I wanted, and I wanted to play guitar, and I wanted to be on a stage, and I wanted the rock star image of like just Pete Townsend going like this, like shit like that got me really excited as a kid. So, I just worked at it and worked at it and worked at it, and forced my way into bands. I would anything I could do to get involved with the band. Hey, I'll come on tour with you. Hey, I'll sell your merch. Hey, I'll fucking fold your patch cords after the show. Like whatever I could do to get involved in the scene more, until someone was silly enough to be like, hey, do you want to play bass in our band? And kind of snowballed from there.
See, that's excellent advice right there. It's a lot of the times it's being there and being involved and showing that you can be counted upon, that you will eventually get that ask. So it's there's the talent aspect of making it, let's say, or getting into a band, if anyone's listening that's interested in doing that. But being a person that's there, that is you can trust and count on, is equally as important as the talent, for sure.
Yeah, I would almost argue that it's even more important. I mean, there's incredibly talented musicians, like some of the most talented people I've ever met in my life, who I've known forever, my whole life, like people I grew up with who were so fucking good at music, but never able to remain in a band. Just, it doesn't matter how good you are at guitar. If we're not able to take you out on tour and spend, 24 hours a day sharing small, intimate spaces together, then like, guess what? It doesn't matter how good of a shredder you are. Like the odds are that the band leader is going to give you the boot. And, I recall when we were really, going through some hard, lineup changes in Diamonds at one point, we were, looking at all these different options for a drummer and options for a bass player. And we'd audition people and be like, man, that guy was so fucking good at drums. Kind of a dick though. Yep. It's like, I don't know if I don't care how good we sound with him and how tight we are and how cool he looks. I don't give a fuck. Like he kind of came off as a dick. I don't want to roll with him every day. And I don't want him to wear our band on his back patch and represent us. Exactly. Like that's not what we're about. We're family. We're fun. So yeah, you get it, man. It's like, it's sometimes the most important thing is who's there and who's reliable and who gets along with the gang, and someone you can travel with is really what it comes down to. That's really truly the representing the band, because anyone that's in the band is showcasing what that band's brand, let's say, is all about. Yeah, it's like the worst thing ever is when you're in a band and you go, someone's like, oh shit, what band do you play in? And you're like, hi, I play in X band. And they're like, oh, is that the band with what's his face? Yeah, that guy's an asshole. And then those bands don't get booked. Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's like in a smaller scene, let's say. Even on a bigger scale, I feel like in a bigger scale, when a band is successful, those bands will still get booked just because they have the draw, though. There's a difference in that. Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And I mean, I'd much rather be known for the complete opposite, which is like, oh shit, like you booked that band as like, he plays in that band. He's an awesome guy. Like I like that guy. Let's book that band. I want people to be excited about, the band walking into a room, whatever band it may be. Like people should be excited. They shouldn't be like, oh fuck, like this is going to be a fucking nightmare. So you did do great things with Diamonds, and you're still doing that, obviously. Nominated for a Juno, which is sick. But then there was an opportunity, or you got the call of joining Exciter, which is a classic, legendary Canadian thrash band. So that is that. I got that moment with Cryptopsy. I'd love to hear. I don't want to hear like how it happened, but just the way you felt joining a legacy band. Well, it's funny because I was so excited when I put my name in for it. I was like, fuck yeah, like this is going to be super cool. Like I'm so down to do this. And the band's initial reaction was, are you sure? Are you serious? Like, do you really want to do this? Like, are you sure? I was like, what? I was like so defeated. I'm like, they think I'm kidding. Like they thought I was joking around or something. They thought I was like taking the piss by putting my name in. I'll never forget. It was like Alan Johnson, the bass player, like sent me a message on Facebook. He's like, hey, like when you said you wanted to join the band, like you weren't serious, were you? And I was like, dude, I'm like 1,000,000% serious. Like I don't know why you'd think otherwise. But dude, it just like the prospect of joining the band was such an exciting thing in its own, because I was truly having my like Marky Mark from Rockstar moment. I was like joining a band that not only were they hometown heroes, I'm born in Ottawa, they're absolute hometown heroes. There's like a deep family connection. Dan Beeler and my family and his kids and me, we all go way back. A lot of family ties there. It was exciting for all those reasons, but it became even more exciting as it was revealed to me that the guitar player who retired from the band, the position that I'd be filling, he actually handled all the booking and the management and the day-to-day operations. So they were like, hey, like you did this shit with Diamonds and you did the shit with Aggressor. Like, do you think like you want to like pitch in and do some of that shit with Exciter? And the moment that I felt that I was no longer just like some hired gun filling in for them, but that I was actually part of a trio and a third of a trio and like brothers and equals with these people and contributing something more than just playing someone else's songs, it was like just the greatest sense of accomplishment I've ever had in my life. And playing that first show with them is, it stands out as by far. I don't care. I've played bigger shows. I've played smaller shows since we've done crazy things. It doesn't matter. That first show, sealing the deal and being there with those other two guys, the three of us on stage, was by far like one of the greatest achievements I've ever had. And it was just kind of a sense of, fuck yeah, we did it. We fucking pulled this off. And I was involved in the logistics, and it was just really reaffirming that, I hadn't spent the last 10 years of my life working on something that was completely in vain. It all kind of came full circle. I came from Ottawa. I moved to the big city. I moved to Toronto to try and chase a musical dream. And here I was coming full circle back to my hometown in Ottawa to play with a band that like actually sold tickets. It was a very exciting thing altogether. And to this day continues to be something I'm so proud of. Really, there's no words to describe. Marky Mark says it best. I used to grow up with posters of these guys on my wall, and now I'm one of them. Yeah. It's like, it's just wild to me, man. You got the same thing, man. You play fucking Cryptopsy, dude.
Yes, sir. I was actually going to talk about the whole coming in and running. It must have been so scary for them, losing that member that was basically handling all the business. So they had to find not only a killer player, but someone that had the business mind to step in and run things behind the scenes too. That, and then finding you and then trusting you must have been a big, big decision for them.
Hey, you know what? And of course, it must have been a huge decision, but I can't stress enough how fast Dan Beeler was to put his trust in me. Like on one of our earliest phone calls discussing, what it would look like if I was in the band and the format of everything, he made it so clear to me that, that I was family, and he wanted me to be treated as an equal in this, and he wanted me to contribute in any way that I felt I could. And it almost like, it just felt like since day one that, I was the guy. They never made me feel like I never had like the Jason New Kid syndrome. They never hazed me. They never made me prove myself. They didn't, there was no like, oh, he's the new kid, let's make him fucking carry all the shit upstairs. There was none of that. Since day one, since the first rehearsal, it just felt like I'd been there forever. And, playing the songs for the first time with them and seeing Dan and Al look at each other and kind of like nod in approval, it was just the whole thing. We're years later and it still feels surreal talking about it. I'm getting all choked up just talking about it right now. It's kind of wild.
I love it. It must have been so much fun for you, you running stuff with Diamond. It's no shade towards Diamond's what I'm going to say next. It must have been really cool to like be writing these emails as Exciter and then getting the yeses where you might have gotten no's before. It must have felt really interesting.
What do you mean would have gotten no's before? More like would have gotten no replies before. I could have lived with some rejection, but there was oftentimes with Diamonds, I'd be writing these emails and you sell yourself for 3 paragraphs and then you get either a 1-word reply or you don't get an answer.
Yeah.
I found myself all of a sudden, I was in a scenario where I catch myself typing like legendary speed metal pioneers from Canada with this many albums. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need to do this anymore. Yeah. Like I can just say, hey, we're excited. We want to play your festival.
Exactly.
So there's a learning curve for me as well. Like in day-to-day operations of the band. So the first Euro tour that I was in charge of some of the logistics on, tour managing for all intents and purposes was the role I was doing. It was funny because I was doing it as if I was still in an underground band that didn't have backing and like kind of had to worry about where they were sleeping and was trying to be all economical with any decision made. And it was just really funny. I had to kind of break out of my comfort zone of just, I'd done something the same way for almost 10 years, like really just doing it the underground, way and being very careful and conservative with my decisions and, have to be careful because Diamonds was only bringing in so much and the gigs were only so good. And all of a sudden I was thrown into this world where I didn't know that I could ask for certain things. Yeah. There was a total learning curve. I was like hiring my own transportation services and like booking terrible flight routes. And I was like, wait a minute, like I can just up the budget and ask for some of these things. So there was definitely a learning curve. I feel bad for Dan and Al, but we laugh about it now. Like the first couple of Euro tours, like I was doing as if I was still in Diamonds and they were like, hey, like we can afford the extra hotel room. You know that, right? Like we're okay. We can get the bigger van with more space for us to stretch out. We can rent the better back line. It was funny, like, breaking out of that mindset of doing everything one way. And I'm still learning. Every day with them is a learning experience. And I've always gone into any project I've been involved with, musical or not, that way. Just got to be a sponge. Look at everyone around you. Listen, shut the fuck up and listen and soak it all up. Because every day every experience, every minute, there's something you can learn from it. There's teachable moments all over the day that go unnoticed sometimes, and don't let those moments go to waste, because they're the difference between success and failure sometimes when it comes down to it.
Excellent jumping off point to you being in metal media. Is that ever anything that you imagined early on? Was that ever a goal of yours? Obviously, becoming a rock star, holding a guitar, and looking cool on stage was a big thing when you were little. At what point did working in metal media or media in general ever become a part of your life?
I mean, Banger was the first time I had done on camera stuff at all. Like, aside from, I mean, even video interviews weren't really a thing in that era. And if they were, it was a dude with a camcorder at your show in person. And you're like, oh my God, is this guy really doing like a filmed interview at the show? Like, can we do this on email, man? You know, like it's like one of those, right? So it was really foreign to me, like to go in and do something heavy metal on camera. So I got called in to do a guest spot on Lockhorns on Banger TV with Sam Dunn. And I went in and did a thrash episode, and being on camera for an hour with a dude that I like this guy literally legitimized my passion for heavy metal in high school. I was getting my ass kicked and made fun of for the bands I like. And here's this guy putting out a film that everyone agreed was like the Bible of our genre. And here I am standing talking about Exodus and Slayer with him. It was like the coolest thing ever. It was like a drug, man. I was like, oh shit, I like this too. Because it had the same element of like, you know, I fell in love with the rock star ideals as a kid, and like, you know, watching a spotlight on Jimmy Page and these fucking crazy dragon pants playing a double neck guitar, like this larger than life shit. And all of a sudden I was getting that same kind of high and feeling the same way about being on camera, talking about something I'm passionate about. So it was almost instantly I proposed to Banger. I was like, hey, like I had a really good time doing this. I'd love to do this again. That was a serious moment for me. I still get the same rush out of it. It's still, for me, it's still a form of performance. Like I love, at the core of it, my favorite thing, like I don't love sitting in a studio for 16 hours a day making an album. I don't love sitting in my pajamas yelling at myself because I can't get a lick to come out the way I hear it when I'm showering. Those aren't my favorite parts about being in a band. My favorite parts about being in a band are the performance elements of it and interacting with people and, you know, trying to be that larger than life persona that I grew up admiring. So it's, to me, it's almost the same thing. It's all in the same realm of presentation and performance. And I fucking fell in love with it. And Banger was cool enough to take a chance on me when they had no reason to take a chance on me. I was just a dude down the street playing in an underground rock band, and they let me kind of go off and be the ADHD metal enthusiastic person that I am. And they loved it and offered me like a permanent slot on their channel. And it opened a lot of doors for me. And I'm incredibly thankful that they took that chance on me, the whole team there. And, you know, fucking working with Sam Dunn, man. It's like, he's an absolute legend in our world. So it's really cool, man. That's still, you know, just more cool shit. I'm all about doing cool shit. And that is certainly some really cool shit right there.
Absolutely. And that led on to Knotfest, the art of an interview. I've watched a bunch of your interviews. You're an excellent host. You craft an interview. So I'd like to hear about the art of the interview and crafting a perfect arc and how you approach talking to people and getting people to open up.
You know, and I love that that's where this conversation's headed, because obviously you yourself are an interviewsman. So you get exactly what I'm talking about. And, you know, you also having the band background, you know, as well as the interview background, you get exactly how I learned how to do it. I learned how to craft an interview by doing dozens and dozens and dozens of shitty interviews.
Absolutely.
You know, like when Diamonds did a record that came on Napalm. So Napalm was gracious enough to get us like 45 interviews a day, it felt like, when that record cycle was happening. It was our first time having a press agent. So we just said yes to everything. And like we'd be between shows and everyone's on their phone doing phoners or doing email answers, like just nonstop press. And what I learned from that is that any dick with a microphone and or camera can be an interviewer. So you learn really quickly that if you do 15 interviews a day, that like 10 of them are really bad. And, you know, no shame on the person doing the interview. Like, I get it if you're, you know, you're new at it and you're learning and you just got given some underground band. Maybe you don't give them the best interview, but it was really eye-opening to me. Like, there was a trend of bad and boring interviews and getting asked. The main thing I noticed was you get asked the same question over and over again. So my big thing when I sit down with a big artist, like when I sit down with a Mustaine or when I sit down with a Slash or when I sit down with anyone of like that stature, the first thing I try to establish between myself and the guest is that this either 15, 30, 45 or hour, whatever we're slotted for, will be unlike every other one that you did that day as well. Because you know that when you get them, they've done 6 in a row that day. They're fucking bored of answering what was the motivation behind the new song for the new record. Like they don't love doing the same thing. So I've always been the kind of, you know, I come from the approach of just trying to make it not boring for the artist, because the more you engage the artist that you're talking to, the more likely that something's going to come out that they haven't said before, or that, you know, actually strikes up a genuine conversation. Like, for example, like I did a Slash interview and I'm supposed to be talking to him about a movie soundtrack that he was working on. We end up talking about pinball for 30 minutes because he's a fucking pinhead and I'm a pinhead. And, you know, we get going on classic machines and then the old Guns N' Roses machine versus the new one that he designed. And then next thing you know, it's like there's 3 people standing behind us telling us to wrap it up and we don't want to wrap it up. We're having a good time. And like, you know, it's the art of the interview is one that to me, it seems simple in my mind. Like I know what I want to do. I know how to accomplish it and I know how to approach it. But, you know, for whatever reason, it seems like there's like an oversaturation of bad interviewers out there. So I always try and set myself apart from that. And, you know, the goal is to try and get them to tell a story that they haven't told, all while I'll share this. Actually, this is good. Lisa Laddiser, the OG producer at Banger TV, she really like taught me a lot about the art of the interview because she's been in media, you know, for forever. She's a pro. And she gave me a pretty useful piece of information that I kind of take with me with every interview, which is don't ask a question that you don't already know the answer to in one form or another.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. And I know it may seem silly because why would you ask a question for something you already know the answer for? But no, because you can ask those questions and use them as stepping stones to build towards maybe something you don't know the answer for, maybe some uncomfortable territories you want to get into with an artist. And, you know, it's just really good to be in your element and kind of to be able to predict where the conversation's going to go. But the art of the interview, like it excites me, man. Like I was doing a weekly interview show during the pandemic on Twitch, 2 hours every week. And I was getting, because I was doing it through Knotfest, I was getting pretty large guests. And like, you know, I just like 2 hours would just fly by because I'd be able to break down the walls within the first 15, 20 minutes. And next thing you know, it's a conversation about like, oh, like your pet went to the vet last week and what did you buy at the grocery store with your family this morning? And like, oh, you're in the middle of moving. Oh, dude, I know that's the word. And next thing you know, it's like, we're not even talking about music. And sometimes those are, more often times than not, those are the best conversations. You get it, man. You're an interview. You do great interviews. I watch your fucking podcast. You're the man.
Thank you. But because people always have their guard up, right? Until you get into an actual conversation. And that's when, well, I have the beer that helps them get there too. But once they feel comfortable with you, the real conversation will come out. And then you're not getting those out of the box questions that they're feeding to press. I don't like to consider myself as press, but publicists do hook me up with people. So we have to hit certain key things, sadly. But I hit them and we move back on to more interesting things.
You just said something very, very interesting that I must acknowledge. You don't like to be viewed as press. So this is, I guess it's like a sub-context of what I was saying, but I'll make it as clear as day. I, too, don't want to be viewed as press. I'm not a journalist. I'm not press. I'm not an interviewer. I'm a musician talking to another musician. And that's a big thing for me. And this year at Psycho Vegas, I was doing interviews just with friends. I was with Nodfest. I'd like text buddies and bands and be like, hey, want to come up to my room? I've got like a ball of whiskey and a bunch of beers in the fridge. You can smoke on camera. No one gives a fuck. Like, just come do an interview. And at the end of my At the Gates interview, I say to Tompa, I'm like, dude, who's going to be the new guitar player? And he's like, I can't tell you. You're a journalist. And I look at him. I'm like, hey, don't use that J word. I'm not the journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm your buddy. I'm a musician. I'm talking to you on the level. Who's the fucking new guitar player? It's just like it's important to separate yourself from the hordes of other people doing this, and to be able to talk to them about musical things that a normal interviewer wouldn't be able to. Like, I could talk shop, I can talk instruments, I could talk tour life, I could talk studio life because I have the experience. So I find it's really useful to, like, in the first 15 minutes, to bring that shit into play, break down those walls, and then let it go and see what it becomes.
That is the plan, but sometimes it doesn't go that way. So if you could go back in time and redo one interview that you just completely lost control of, what would that be?
Two that come to mind instantly: Troy Sanders, Mastodon. I was really new and fresh and got like the 15-minute treatment, and it's brutal. It's really bad. I think we aired 4 minutes of it. Like, it was like a quick little tidbit on YouTube. It's bad. It's bad. I would love to redo that one. And as well, David Vincent. I would love to redo that one. He fucking hated me. Oh, really? He fucking hated me. Oh yeah, he hated me. It's because I did it with Blaine. Blaine and I had a podcast. Blaine Smith, one of my co-hosts from Banger. We had a podcast for a while there, and we had David on. And Blaine's a comedian, so he was being really funny, and I'm like a super fan, so I was being really nerdy. And I think just like David was just completely put off by the dynamic. He's got like one guy making jokes, one guy calling him Evil D. He's like, what's going on here? I'm fucking out. Like, he gave us the most like, I don't want to be here answers ever. And I feel like I tell people that and they're like, no, man, he's a great interview. Like, he's such a rad dude. I feel like we blew it. We dropped the ball on that one. I would love to redo that one today, and maybe on my own.
We love you, Blaine.
We love you, Blaine. Yes, we love Blaine, but maybe I'll do that one on my own.
I have a new segment throughout 2023 called Fight the Hops, where I ask my guests about something that they're working on, a very small goal that they hope to accomplish throughout the next year, throughout the next few months. It can be anything from making yourself better, accomplishing something in your business. What are you doing right now to fight the hops?
So a big thing for me right now is, and something I've struggled with actually for a long time, get real with you here, is organization in planning out my tasks. So I get my hands involved in a lot of shit, and I don't have. I'm alone. I'm a sole proprietor here at the DK Army, and I find that while I do manage to get everything done, I find that there's, things aren't always done as timely as they should be, and things aren't always done at the level of quality that I like to hold myself to. So in the next little bit, I'd like to get better with managing my time and knowing how much to spend on one project, and when it's time to move on to the next. I find myself, if you're a SpongeBob fan, there's like that moment where SpongeBob has to write an essay, and it shows him furiously writing on a piece of paper, and then it says like 7 hours later, and he lifts it up and all his paper says is that's how I feel sometimes. So I would really like in this year, one of my big goals is to just get better with managing my time, because there's so many things I want to do that I'm not able to get to because I can't find the time to get it done at that high level of quality that I want it to be at. So that's how I'm going to fight the hops, by fighting the ADHD brain that has 47 tabs open at all times, and they all have audio playing in my brain. 47 tabs, all playing their own individual audio, and you can't figure out where the sound's coming from, and you're pressing all the buttons, and then next thing you know, the day's over and you didn't get anything accomplished. So I'm trying to work on that. That's my big goal for this year, is to get my shit a little more organized. Right now, I have a planner. That's my latest thing. I bought a planner, and I'm handwriting things in a planner because I'm analog as fuck.
We actually were supposed to do this interview in October, which is a perfect jumping off point right there. We we did the pre-fest interview in Winnipeg, and then we went to a bar after. Just you and Melinda. Shout out to Melinda. We went to a bar and we drank and we scheduled something like we're going to do this interview, and then we both missed it, and it just never happened. Which is why we're doing this one.
Yeah, I recall like vividly, like we finished up that interview and I knew right away that I wanted to pitch to you that we do a full interview. Like I was so excited to do a one-on-one with you, and it was in my calendar, and a week before I got the reminder notification. I'm like, fuck yeah, like next week we're doing this. And then
I had totally forgotten.
I didn't text you, you didn't text me, it just happened. And so yeah, so case in point, maybe I need an assistant, probably not, probably just need to be more organized.
It's tough because you are very, very, very busy. I am busy as well, but I think you might be a bit more busy, and just the day-to-day organization, it's a lot. And for myself, what I do, this is just how my brain works, and it's all in my head typically, and that's just the way I work. But I organize as I walk from my house in the morning until I hit my commute in the morning before I start doing emails. Is like, today I'm going to do this, and I like hammer out this list in my brain, and then I do it before I go to bed, basically, is how I get through stuff.
So like with my ADHD style brain, and once again, I'm just throwing around the term ADHD. Perhaps it's not the best descriptor. It's like an undiagnosed ADHD, but I'm like pretty sure that's what we're dealing with here. But I'm afraid to go to the doctor for that because I don't want them to tell me to take Ritalin. You know what I mean? Like
you don't want to change. Well, not that Ritalin changes you. I
need this energy. Like don't take this energy out of me. I need this energy. I thrive on it sometimes. But so if I try and do the style in which you just talked about, I'll get distracted by 47 other things on that walk. It's like I'll see a billboard and now I'm ranking billboards in my brain as well and trying to remember what that one billboard near the convenience store where I grew up on that street when I was 7 years old. What did that billboard say again? Oh yeah, and then that was the guy who owned the convenience store. He had that kid I used to play hockey with. And then hockey, yeah, dude, Guy Lafleur, what an unbelievable. Yeah, it's just like it's
wow.
Snowball effect, dude.
Yeah.
It happens really fast.
And then it's 11 o'clock at night, and then.
Then it's 11 p.m. and I've done literally nothing but smoke weed and drink beer and think about what I'm going to do that day.
Back, I did this, like, I have hustler is a word and it gets thrown around, but hustler sort of means swindler as well, and that's definitely not what I think you are. In high school and when you were growing up, was this like drive to do so many things and to achieve, was it there? Or is it something that you cultivated over the 10 years in Toronto with Diamonds before joining Exciter?
I come from like a working class family where I saw like a dad put in 90-hour weeks my whole life. So the obsessive nature of like being slightly addicted to working is very real and in my blood. It's something I grew up and watched my dad like literally give his entire life away to running a business. So I think that that's where I get a lot of that from. Did it translate to school? Absolutely not. I did terrible in school. I was a really bad student. Faked my way through university, high school and university. Probably only passed any classes because I had actual relationships with my teachers because I just spoke to them like an adult and, you know, tried to be an interesting person. But yeah, I didn't have drive to do well or succeed in things that I did not like. Then, you know, flip to the alternative as a teenager. Like I managed my first band when I was 17 years old. Like I approached my friends in a band and I was like, hey, you guys are sick musicians. You have no idea how to manage your band. Let me do it for you. And so, I mean, I've always had the drive to like be like I call it like an entrepreneurial mind. I've always had kind of the idea that I wanted to take things and turn them into bigger things and open new doors and more opportunities. But the ability to get it done, the know-how and the discipline and kind of just problem solving, I would say definitely came from Diamonds. We were, the core three of us in the band, myself, CC Diamond and Priya Panda, lived in a home together and spent 10 hours a day working on that band every single day. And like basically taking bar back shifts at night or bartending or go on Craigslist and find an odd job that was for one day or for a weekend in a convention center selling some weird product, or whatever weird cash jobs we could find. We would all take on those types of things so that we could still dedicate 10 hours a day to basically, like, it's whoever had money that week would buy the fucking Burger King, and we would just sit around all day and just get shit done. A completely independent DIY till the day we die kind of band. And that was rock school for me, man. I learned a lot working with them, and I started working with them when I was 19 years old. So here we are over a decade later, and I have so much to thank to those two for working with me, and we made a great team, man. We got a lot accomplished, and it really taught me a lot of discipline and gave me a lot of know-how and a lot of amazing contacts. And contacts are everything in getting shit done. You got to have friends who can help you. You can't do everything yourself. You got to have friends who specialize in different things, and know who to lean on, when to lean on them, and to be in a position where you can compensate them properly. It's very important. So shout out to all those years grinding in diamonds. It taught me a lot of very important skills for this world that we've immersed ourselves in, and they're very applicable to everyday situations. And I'm a way better person because of going through what I went through with them for 10 years. Absolutely.
You hit like two things right there. Was school not necessarily being the best academic, but obviously you're super successful. So this is also just like people listening, like if school is difficult for you, you might just not fit into the mold of what society expects from you. And that's the thing about society that's weird, is that school is created for one type of person. And I hope it's getting better than when I was there. I'm aging myself over 20 years ago now. But obviously super successful, even despite being not academically successful, because it didn't interest you.
Well, I think that, if you want to be a psychiatrist, or you want to be an engineer, or you want to do something that there are courses crafted specifically for, school's probably going to be for you if it's something you're passionate about. And like, let's say your grandfather was an engineer and your dad was an engineer and you want to be an engineer, like, man, maybe fucking engineering's the route for you. Like choose your own destiny, choose your own adventure, flip to page 69. And I get it. That's totally what it exists for. But I was sitting there in university in like psychology classes and philosophy classes and English major classes. And I was like, dude, I want to be a fucking rock star. What the hell? Like, I'm sitting here like listening to new releases on my iPod and like drawing like stage backdrop and like amp cabinet designs. And it's just like, there wasn't a course for that. So, I think I was in the wrong place. I did. And, I think the big takeaway from that, and, again, you say if academics aren't working out for you, it's not the be all end all. Like, personally, I don't think you should be there if none of those directions are for you. I only went to school because I was pressured. My parents were worried that I was going to end up working 90 hours a week like my dad before me, and I currently am. But it doesn't bother me because I'm working 90 hours a week for something I love.
That's true.
And I think that's the big takeaway is to, if you succumb to pressures to getting into a academic or otherwise situation that you're not in love with, you're just wasting everyone's time. Seek out what you love, give your life away to it, and make it work for you. And that's really what's important.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. All the stuff that I do with Vox&Hops is pure passion. I don't even count that as work hours on top of my full-time day job. This is just pleasure for me. It's work, but it doesn't feel like work. It's a joy. The second question that came up was like, Ollie came to me. He's like, Matt, cattle decapitation, asked me to join. What should I do? I said, you should do it. You, living with diamonds, grinding for 10 years, the Exciter thing comes up. What was that conversation? Was it as fluid and easy for them to say, yes, please go take it?
Yeah, it was, because we actually, luckily I wasn't the first person to get offered a band while we had a band. We went through it a couple years earlier. It was actually a very difficult time. I haven't talked about this a lot. And I think I don't think anyone will get mad at me because it's so long ago now. Diamonds had put out what was to be our, this was the record. We were 3 albums deep. This was the first one on a major label. Napalm, and in North America it was on E1, and we had, booking agent, and we had management. We had for once, all the things seemed to be in place. Juno nomination, world tour, all this shit was happening. And Priya got offered to join another band that was an incredible opportunity. It was a band called the She Demons, and it was a band that was kind of created in it was the brainchild of Jerry Only from the Misfits. And there was a lot of incredible people behind it, including Ed Stasium, legendary producer, and a bunch of other really talented people in the band as well. And we had to sit down and have this discussion. It was like, all right, we've got an offer for a tour that would be a support tour for Diamonds with a large band that would be really good for us exposure wise. And this is our new album. We should be out on the road, constantly shoving it down everyone's throats. And here's Priya with an offer to go do something that she was super, super, and rightly so excited about. And as a band, we had to talk about it. And we talked about it, and we decided that, we've been doing Diamonds for so long, and we're going to keep doing Diamonds for so long, that it would be terrible of us to, deprive her of this opportunity to go do something that she might not be able to get to do ever again. So we were all in support. We're like, fuck yeah, go join She Demons. And it was like a little ridiculous, some of the things we had to do to like make it all work. Like I recall specifically, Diamonds was playing in Japan, and she left a She Demons tour in the middle, and like they played 2 shows without her, and she flew to Japan, and we did these gigs, and then like we all hung in Japan, but she had to fly back to the She Demons tour. Like it was a lot, and it definitely created some tension in the band. How could it not? Some people were upset it was happening, but at the end of the day, we were not just business partners, we were friends. We're all best friends, and to tell one of your best friends they can't do something that they were passionate about would have been the ultimate sin, in my opinion. So we had her back on it, and we were super into it. So when the time came for, I got the offer to join Exciter, I didn't even think I asked them for permission. I told them what was happening, and it was kind of just, understood. You got to do what's best for the individual, because as much as we love Diamonds and it was our baby, like we're all individual people, and we got to live our lives and do things that, feel good for us. And as long as it's not like cutting your hands off and never being able to play music again, I see no opposition to letting anyone do whatever the fuck they want.
There's always a long career, and, people are playing later and later into life, and there's always time to keep continuing and getting back together, and you'll be on a higher platform because high tides raise all ships, as Jamie Jester would say.
And you know what? I 100% agree with that. And that kind of played into anything that would get offered to anyone while we were doing Diamonds. Was just like, because Diamonds is like really chilled out now. Like Diamonds is like a one gig a year, 2 gigs a year type situation now. Everyone's kind of all over the country and involved in other projects. But in the height of it, when we were doing Diamonds for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, we still had that high tides raise all ships type mentality, that if someone got offered to go do something that was outside the band, but they still had a potential to like plug the band, and, maybe it just meant playing in another band for a minute, but still wearing a Diamond shirt on stage, like whatever it was, like it was still for the greater good. And we always kind of had that approach, and I'm happy we did, because people who get like territorial, like over like, you can't have any side projects, like that's how you create that's how you create animosity in a band situation. That's how you make people resent each other. It's like if you hold someone back from an opportunity that they think is going to be good for them, how do you expect them to look at you the same way after you've held, if you're the reason they couldn't do it, they're going to hold that against you forever, whether or not you think they will. And it'd be foolish to not let people live to their best potential. So yeah, I'm all about high tides raise all ships. Absolutely, man.
I'm sure that members that are territorial like that tend to be those people we were talking about earlier. When we bring up bands, they're like, oh yeah, you're in the band with that asshole. I have one last question for you, but before I ask you that, this is a Thirsty Thursday virtual hang, and we're with a bunch of killer people that I hang out with very frequently. Let's open the floor to the Thirsty Thursday gang. Who here has a question for Daniel? Raise your digital hand. You know how to do this. And as always, the first person with his hand up is Philippe Brousseau, Der Vitesse from the Whispers from the Void podcast. Phil, go for it.
Hello, hello.
Phil, ça va? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm pretty good. You got a good French, man?
I'm from Ottawa, so whether or not I wanted to learn French, I learned French. It's really bad, though. I won't try and pretend I can speak it, but Gales tabernac esti!
Nice. Love it. So my question is pretty simple. What is the thing, the achievement that made you proud, the proudest in your life? And any achievement, it can be musical, it can be like interview-wise, it can be anything.
I think that, obviously we talked about that. Exciter first show was a really, really special one for me. Playing Heavy MTL for the very first time because it was something so local. It was a festival that I went to as a teenager to go, whether I want to see Slayer or Metallica or any of those huge bands or, Motley Crue, Iron Maiden, that was the festival that I would travel to. So then to finally get to play the main stage at that festival felt like a very big achievement. But I will say number one by far was the Juno nomination for the simple reason, not that I care about award shows, not that I think the Grammys are important, but it was because for the very first time in my life, my mom had a frame of reference of what the fuck I was doing because she'd come to shows sometimes and she'd be like, what is it? This is what we're doing. And like, then I was on the Junos and it was televised and I'm on the red carpet and it was in the newspaper. She finally had something tangible to be like, no, my son does this. So for me, the Juno nomination was definitely one of the proudest achievements for the sole fact I could finally look at my mom and say, see, I fucking told you it was worthwhile.
That's perfect. I wait the time that my mom will be proud of what I do, which is talking to people.
Hey, conversation skills are very important. You get to talk to a lot of cool people along the way.
And doing hobby graphic design.
There you go. Ooh.
He's killing it recently. Phil's been doing a bunch of great stuff for the podcast, especially throughout January. I'll talk a lot more about that after we stop recording here.
Love it.
Thank you, Phil.
Nice to meet you, Phil. Hope you have an awesome rest of your Thirsty Thursday.
Oh yes, nice to meet you, Dan.
Cheers, salut.
Up next, we got West Coast Jerry. Go for it, bud.
Hey, what's up, Daniel?
West Coast Jerry, what's going on, brother?
Jerry. I've always been the only person on the West Coast, and now we got you over here in LA. I'm in Orange County.
Right on. Oh, dude, OC, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, dude, total. So, been a fan of Banger TV for years. When's the next Shredders of Metal? And I know you guys do Twitch. Is there any way you guys are going to release it or plans to release it on YouTube? Because I don't have Twitch.
Okay, so stuff. Let's go. Twitch. I'll get that right out of the way. We are. So already there's a couple of the Lockhorns that we did and a couple of the interview segments that we did are on Banger TV on YouTube. They're just not called like Twitch. I don't think they say Twitch in the title. So you may not even realize that those were actually Twitch broadcasts to begin with. So there are some that are up there. There's still some in the archive that haven't gone up there yet. But I believe the plan is to continue. Like any week we don't have a secondary video for Tuesday, I believe the plan is to just continue uploading any of those various Lockhorns that we did over the year that we were putting out Twitch content very regularly. We were streaming twice a week on Twitch. So that hammers that. And Shredders of Metal. So we did a little bit of digital Shredders of Metal on Twitch. And guess what? It's way harder than we thought it would be. The audio tech associated with having multiple guitar players playing at the same time, and then having judges and all these different people and a live audience. Like it was a lot. And it also limited who could do the show because you could be a wicked guitar player, but not have a computer that can withstand the power required to live stream, or even some guitar players just don't even have like audio interfaces to plug in their guitar to their computer. They're analog guys like me. So it presented some issues, but we had to roll with the punches of the pandemic and we did the best we could. But now that we're in a situation where it's okay to film in person, I imagine that without revealing too much, that I imagine that this year at some point, there will be an announcement for another Shredders of Metal. And it will be taking place in person the way that you're used to, as opposed to digitally on Twitch.
That's fucking awesome. Up next, we have Peter from Half.
Wait, from Half? Dude, album of the year, baby. Let's go. Fuck yeah.
Thank you, bud. Yeah.
Dude.
Big fan.
Dude. Well, I'm a big fan of you. You guys have one of the fucking best records of the year. Holy shit. Peter from Half is in the chat right now, everyone. That's crazy.
We're talking about you. We're talking about you tonight. Thank you.
Man, that's crazy, dude. I just saw Hath getting listed on Milwaukee Metal Fest.
I was gonna give a shout out to that too.
Dude, that's fucking massive, dude. They are continuing in the tradition of keeping that such an underground centric festival. The way it started in '87, it was an underground fucking festival, and it still is. And they're proving it because they're booking bands like you guys. They know what the fuck's going on. Jasta coming up big with that festival lineup, man. It kills.
That was a nice surprise.
It kills. I'm stoked for you guys, man. You guys are fucking sick, man. I'm so stoked you're here.
Bud. Well, now my turn. Big fan of you and all you guys at Banger. A really big fan of what you guys do. And a lot of what you said tonight really kind of struck a chord. The DIY grindy band, doing everything you can, like fuck school. I'm going to just dedicate everything I can. Right in my heartstrings. But one thing you said in particular really kind of stood out. And I want to pose this question to you. What do you think it is about the shower that brings out our best riffs? And why do we forget them as soon as we walk out of the shower?
Okay. So the shower's a sacred place. I mean, what happens in the shower stays in the shower, except for the riffs. It's a time where you can be alone and just kind of like stew with your own thoughts. And I think as a musician, there's like just that funny people always talking about coming up with riffs in the shower, that sometimes I find myself in the shower trying to come up with a riff because I feel like there's that expectation like, oh, fuck, like Prince said he had audio activated microphones in his bathroom so that if he's in the shower and comes up with a melody, he can hum it. Like if that's how Prince does it, that's how I should be doing it. So I just think there's like this expectation that like that's where it all happens. But truthfully, it is an opportunity where there's some white noise and you can figure out the key that the white noise is in. Like that water's falling and hitting the ceramic. Like that's a key. There's a tonal sound there. Like you can lock in with that, and there's just serenity and steam all around you. It's just like the perfect spot to come up with a sexy melody, man.
I don't disagree. I've had more than one time where I've dived out of the shower, grabbed a towel, and immediately picked up a guitar because there's only a minute, maybe 2 minutes tops before it's gone.
Gone. And it's the same with everything. It's like you come up with something in the car, and by the time you park and get up to your apartment, it's gone. Or it's like, I find it sometimes happens with like song titles. I'll be like out with a buddy, and I'm like, dude, like that's a fucking song title right there. That's awesome. Then the next day, neither of us remember what it was. Hey, remember that song we came up with at midnight last night? Like, what was that? Like, no one knows. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's just lost into purgatory. Maybe one day they'll come back to us. But yeah, it's a really good observation. Those song ideas that happen in the shower don't last very long. You do have 1 minute. You know what your mistake is you're grabbing a towel.
Yeah.
Priorities, brother.
It's true.
Grab that guitar. Forget the towel.
Keep the shakes down all the time.
Hang full dong and come up with that riff on the spot, baby. Fuck a towel.
That's a good interview story, too.
There you go, right? You can have that one.
I like it. You got to save it for Vox&Hops, though, Peter. We got Brian up next.
Hello, Brian.
Hey, how's it going, Daniel? How you doing?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Through different interviews of musicians, some people say they like to do what they do because of the spotlight and the attention. And some people do it to bring joy to others in whatever fashion they choose. You mentioned it as a youngster, seeing music videos and stuff and wanting to jam out and, be the flashy guy playing guitar, jumping around, all that stuff. What was the mix for you as far as like wanting to do it for people and wanting to do it for attention. Is it the same now as it was then? Has it changed?
It's changed drastically. Growing up, it was all about and no sugarcoating it. It was selfish want of spotlight. Like I wanted to be that rock star that I would see in a video, like the spotlight and the screaming fans and the big music videos and the billboards and the in-stores and all that shit. Like that was my initial motivator. Admittedly very childish, but I was also 6 years old. I got my first Kiss record when I was 6 years old, and it's all fucking downhill from there. That was really what did it. And so it starts as that is like my main motivator was I wanted to be a rock star, and I was going to do whatever it took to become a rock star and to make it, quote unquote. But there was a massive paradigmal shift for me when, I went out and did maybe not my first tour, but like, I got a couple tours in with Diamonds and I started meeting actual fans. It was the first time I'd met fans in my life. I'd never met someone who was a fan of something that I had done. And, the first time you meet someone who, again, no sugarcoating, you play an underground show for 16 people and 9 of those 16 people are all standing in the front row wearing a shirt from a past tour, singing every word at you, and then talking to you after the show saying, that record got me through one of the hardest times of my life. That record helped me get over a bad situation I was in. That record got me into this type of music. That record did something for me more than just in one ear out the other. I was like, holy shit, wait a minute. So in my quest for rock stardom, I can also bring joy, excitement, and even better people's lives. Like I can do all of that shit just by doing something I love. And a need that I had is I'm fulfilling my need and doing something that I could never even imagine I could have done for someone else. That was the paradigmal shift for me. And it became, honestly, it's like not about me at all anymore, man. I go on stage with the flu. I'll be in South America, literally like absolutely fucking so sick. Like, dude, the last time we were in South America, all 3 of us got really bad food poisoning, lasted 11 days. And we had a show and a flight or 2 flights every single day. And there was no like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do this tonight. It was, oh, fuck, I better get my shit together because I want to make everyone's day out there tonight. And it stops at a certain point. It stops being about yourself and it starts being about the people in the audience. And it's just like an ecosystem. You feed it and I feed them and they feed me and I feed them and they feed me. And it's just a very copacetic relationship between performer and audience. And I never ever imagined it would be like that because as a kid growing up, you just see, you just see the rock star in the spotlight and you're like, I want that. And you don't realize what that comes with. And the fact that I'm able to chase a dream that satisfies and fulfills my needs creatively and, it does so much for me. And then to see that it also does so much for someone else is the ultimate payout, man. Meeting people and hearing how something you do has positively affected their lives. If that don't move you, then your heart's broken, man. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome.
Hell yeah.
That's true. There's nothing better than feeding the ecosystem of your fan base, your community, and then them reciprocally giving it back to us and encouraging us to be more creative, to give them even more of those experiences. We're very lucky people to do what we do. It's a very, very, very lucky.
100%. And like, as I say, like it truly was a paradigmal shift. Like I've grown. I'm fine to admit it. Like when I started playing shows, it was like, I just thought it was all about me. And I would like, I made sure like I looked as cool as I could. And I was standing, could always be seen on stage. And I would even look like, just like look out at the crowd, like above and look all the way to the back. And it was like a moment. And like, nah, man, the minute I realized that that's what it wasn't about, you even see it from in my like teens and early 20s versus how I am on stage now. You see it like it's all about personal connections. Those first 15 rows, man. Yeah. I look every single person in the eyes. They scream the words at me. I scream the words back at them. And it's been so fulfilling and so enriching to realize that, holy shit, what started out as like chasing a rock star dream has actually turned into like, I'm feeling good about myself because I can make other people feel good with what I'm doing. It's like the most beautiful shit ever. I hug everyone, dude. That's the thing now too, is like they come up to me at the merch booth and they say that and I just start fucking hugging them. I'm like, you know, they're telling me about how much I do for them. They don't realize how much they do for me. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's a very copacetic and fucking, it's feeding the ecosystem, man. You got to keep that shit strong.
Jerry Monk, Vox&Hops, is metal architect, the man that creates the Brutal Awakenings playlists. Go for it, bud.
What's going on, guys? Shout out first for the Creeping Death shirt, local boys for me.
Right on. Texas.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Dallas, Texas. Two-part question. Your favorite interview that you've done so far for any of the outlets that you are on, and if there's one artist or person in general that you could interview, who would it be?
So that's really good question. Let me think here. So, I mean, Dave Mustaine was a crazy one for me because I'm just such a fan. I had 30 minutes, or like what was scheduled to be 30 minutes with Dave Mustaine, and ended up talking for an hour, which if you know that guy and the strictness around doing interviews with artists of that size, you know how much of a fucking anomaly something like that happening is. So that was definitely like as a fanboy, like making Dave Mustaine laugh and then him also calling me bro and by my first name at the end of the interview was like pretty cool. But I will say that one of the most memorable interviews for me was one that I did with Corpse Grinder. And I'm sure Matt has definitely had a couple interviews with Corpse Grinder over the years and can attest that dude loves to talk. I did not realize that my 30-minute Zoom interview with Corpse Grinder would turn into a 4.5 hour hang with him and his wife, and we're making dinner together and we're drinking and we're talking mad shit on, you know, band members that remain unnamed, and like I'm just like a fucking fanboy in a fever dream. It's the middle of the pandemic. I've got Corpse Grinder. Started the interview when the sun was up, and now the sun's down and my shitty little apartment is pitch black. I haven't moved in 4 hours. That was a pretty crazy one, man. And again, that's a scenario where the 20-minute interview gets released and we literally talked for 4.5 hours. It was crazy.
Amazing.
That was an insane one. And left on the bucket list, like, I don't know, man, would love to do a proper interview with, you know, some of the legends, man. I'd love to sit down with Alice Cooper. Met him once backstage and it was like the sweetest man. I was all nervous. It was like backstage at a Maiden show where Alice Cooper was support, and I'm standing there in awe at Alice Cooper, and he literally just walked up to me and says, "Hello, would you like a photo?" And I'm like, all right, this guy's the coolest. So I would love to do a sit down with Alice Cooper. He's one of the OGs and a reason the Alice Cooper band is a reason why a lot of the bands I love today exist. And, you know, Alice Cooper's on the bucket list, and obviously Papa Het is on the bucket list. Let's be real. He's the reason we all do what we do. He's the reason this shirt exists, man. It's a Creeping Death Metallica ripoff. Yeah. Let's go. It's a puss head design.
Absolutely. West Coast Jerry has another question for Daniel. Go for it.
Follow up. Sorry, real quick. You mentioned South America. It made me think, what country or continent has the best crowds when playing live? I was talking with a buddy, and we were talking about who has a better or a bigger metal community, South America or Europe. You've toured around the world. Matt, this is for you too. What are your guys' experiences with the crowds in various continents, countries?
So South America and Europe are completely different. Craziest crowds in South America, I'm gonna go with Chile, probably. Like Santiago is like literally like, I don't know, insane. Like absolutely outlandishly insane. So I go like Chile or Brazil, definitely have some of the craziest South American shows. That's not to say that the rest of the shows aren't crazy though. Like the first time you go to South America, nothing can prepare you for what it is. Not only with the fan interaction, like nowhere in Europe do we have people waiting at the airports for us for our arrivals. Nowhere in Europe are people lighting off flares in the middle of the audience. Nowhere in Europe do they tell you it's unsafe to stand on the barricade because the crowd will just start stripping you of anything. Dude, I didn't know this in Colombia. We were playing a festival in Colombia and I went and stood. I was just like fucking walk down, walk off the subs into the barricade and like stood on the fucking bar. And they started like undoing the whammy on my Floyd Rose. They're undoing my arm gauntlets. They're just like pulling me in. And I'm like, oh shit, that was a bad call. Like retreat. And, they don't, you can't prepare yourself for something like that. The passion is unmatched, man. Just the airports. That was the first thing I noticed is we show up at an airport at 1 a.m. Hey, plot spoiler, bands don't make a lot of money. We take the worst red eye flights. Show up at El Dorado Airport at 1 a.m. And there's fucking 40 kids with stacks of albums and homemade photos. Like my first tour in South America, we didn't have a real press photo yet. I just joined the band. We didn't have a real press photo. And there were these weird bootleg collage photos of me like in diamonds wearing like a diamond stage getup with the two dudes in Exciter. Like they'd gone out of their way to make like fan photos for us to sign at the airport. Nothing can prepare you for that kind of shit. Europe is insane, but in its own way. But dude, I don't know, Matt, what are the craziest spots for you in South America? I think Chile or Brazil has to be the most insane I think that I've experienced.
El Salvador too. When we did that, we did a Cryptopsy Watain Suffocation tour. That was the last time I was down there. It was just off the hook every night, every airport just waiting for us at our hotels. They would find out where we're staying and they would be there as well. But definitely, you hit Santiago was probably one of the craziest shows I've ever played. Bolivia.
We played in Cochabamba in Bolivia. And I recall like the whole week leading up to that, everyone, makes the small talk. Where are you headed next? What are you doing? And I'd say, oh, we're going here. We're going to Cochabamba, Bolivia. They're like, you're going to Cochabamba, Bolivia? Like, prepare yourself. Not only is like the altitude insane, you're going to need some oxygen tanks on stage. The people are fucking mad. And they had like a 40-foot Bolivian flag that they had like spray painted an Exciter logo on. And they just stood like when we showed up at the venue, it seemed like people were there for 10 hours waiting for us, just like to get a photo with us with the flag. It was really crazy. Bolivia, Chile, El Salvador is insane. South America shows like nothing can prepare you for what South America brings to the table in terms of metal shows. Incredible passion.
Exactly what I was going to say. The passion, I think that a lot less, it's more so now, but it's just there's a lot less tours compared to Europe. So they have to wait longer to see the bands that they love. And Europe has all the massive festivals. Now Mexico's doing some pretty fucking massive things to it. Heaven and Hell, I believe, is the name of it, right? It's just
and the Mexico Monterey Metal Fest as well. They got a bunch of huge ones, yeah.
So it's cool. It's exciting. I'm excited to go back when everything starts again with Cryptopsy, which I'll talk about after we stop recording as well. Last question from me. I typically wrap up with my hangover cure. We did that already in Manitoba. It was staying in bed for 18 hours.
Dying. Turn off your phone. Don't even try water, Gatorade. Get fucked. Just sleep and die. The day is a write-off. Give it up.
I will ask you a question that I'm wondering if over the past few months you've had time to accomplish this and or change your thoughts. It's a collab. I love collabs. I'm working on a massive project right now, a global collab project, which I will be talking about more in the next few months. You mentioned in Manitoba that you'd like to have your own weed being sold and distributed called Better Than God's Vagina. So I'm wondering if you've accomplished this, if you're any closer to it, or if you'd rather think of a different Dekay collab that would be more fitting.
Dude, I must have been so stoned when I said that. That's a Pineapple Express reference. And he smells that big bag of weed in James Franco's apartment. Smells like God's vagina. I just want to live in it. So I would still love to do a weed collab because I love weed and I love beer, and I've already done a beer collab. I did with Diamonds. We did the Never Wanna Die PA,
so good,
which was so much fun. So I've kind of knocked the beer collab off my list. I would love to do a weed collab. have made no headway in doing it. So, may as well utilize the platform we have right now to say, hey, if you're a cannabis cultivator and you have a brand and you do collabs and you want to do some DK branded weed, either like a fun heavy metal pun or just straight up call it like DK Army or whatever, I would love to get into terps and get into fucking potency with you, and we could work on something real crispy because my name's Daniel and I like to party.
I love it. Daniel, thank you so much for hanging out with me, talking about your life, talking about music, talking about craft beer. I had a blast doing a proper Vox and Hops interview with you where we got to go deeper and unpeel the layers of who you are. You're multifaceted, very interesting individual. We're going to keep hanging out here, but, you had to be here if you wanted to, I guess the people at the Twitch are still going to be there, but you had to be at the Twitch too. So that's cool too. So
we've got a big Twitch audience here, dude. The Twitch chat has been live this whole time.
I love it.
The Twitch people are loving it. Anyone listening who's like, what the fuck's he talking about with Twitch? I stream on Twitch 4 times a week. Come hang. I never done what Matt and I are doing right now, but I play guitar and hang and talk shit 4 times a week on Twitch for like 5 to 7 hours at a time for real.
Jesus
Christ. So
yeah.
come on down, folks. Twitch.tv/Daniel_DK.
I love it. Daniel, thank you so much. This was great. Looking forward to seeing you in the flesh, hopefully soon. Massive cheers to you. I'm going to sign off for the Vox and Hops part of this. Cheers.
Hell yeah.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. Man, Daniel Dekay is a killer human. I love hanging out with him. As I mentioned during this episode, I had so much fun hanging out with him in Manitoba when we went out there to play Manitoba Metal Fest, and I was so damn stoked to hang out with him live on his Twitch. When he told me how many people were listening afterwards, I was baffled, and I was very stoked not to know that while I was conducting the interview, because I might have been a tad more nervous. Super stoked that Dekay came to hang out with the Thirsty Thursday gang. They really appreciated his presence. He is just a killer guy. Massive cheers to you, Daniel, for hanging out with me, for being awesome, for being so open and honest about everything. If you have not followed Dekay on all of the amazing things that he's doing, such as Banger TV, Knotfest, his Twitch, and of course Exciter, well, you definitely should, because he is an awesome musician, and he's an even better human being. Massive cheers to you, Daniel, for hanging out with me and being awesome once again. I can't wait to do it again. Now, if you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast's mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. And when you do that, you shall receive 1 email a week that contains all of the details of everything that has happened recently in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. You will get to see which episodes I dropped recently. You will get to see which episodes I have coming up. You will also get to hear about any projects I have in the works before I announce them to the public. And I have 2-3 massive projects going on right now that I'm building up, that I'm hinting at in the newsletter. You will also get to see which albums the Vox and Hops album review crew have reviewed recently, and you will get to see which albums Jerry Monk, Vox and Hops' metal architect, has added to the Brutal Awakenings playlist, which is available on both Apple Music and Spotify, and is packed with all the freshest, newest, most extreme metal releases each week. If you're looking for some new music to listen to, look no further. The Brutal Awakenings playlist is what you want to be listening to. There's always a lot going on in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, and I hate when you miss a single thing. So please do me a favor and sign up to the mailing list. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope you have a killer rest of the week. I will be back next week with 2 episodes. But until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.